Hello everyone, this is Catherine Mills, and Sylvia asked me to do a presentation for the group, and after some discussion, we decided to present or talk about the ChromaMagic app. And I know that it's an app that I've introduced my students to, although with care, because I see it as a tool, but it could easily, I think, become a crutch. But I want to start off with the free version of the app, which you can get on the ChromaMagic website. The paid version of the app, which you can get, of course, through Google Play and or the App Store on your Apple device. However, in order to understand ChromaMagic, you need to, I believe, in my humble opinion, understand the Munsell color system to begin with. And although I've been familiar with it for a while, I do encounter people who have never heard of it or experienced it. So let's start with that, because unless you understand that, then using the app, using ChromaMagic, I don't think makes a lot of sense to people. So the Munsell color system was developed early in the 20th century as a way of standardizing color. And of course, as we've all experienced as artists, this is such a vast, unwieldy topic, and most of us find it difficult to apply language to something that is really a visual sensation. So Munsell developed a system of breaking color down into 10 basic hues, which are pictured here, and going from yellow, 5Y, to all the way through to 5YR, so yellow, red, 5 red, and 5 is sort of the middle or generalized aspect of that particular hue. In a full Munsell system, each hue that's pictured here is further broken down into 4 components. So hue, of course, is only one aspect of color. The second aspect is value. And of course, we've all encountered this either in our own work or through instruction. That value is the lightness or the darkness of the color. And within the Munsell system, 0 is black and 10 is white. So we have a 10-stage value system within Munsell, and each hue will have an innate value assigned to it, with yellow, of course, being the brightest, and blue and violet being the darkest. And usually as well, blue and violet have also the highest chroma. And chroma is the third aspect of color. So how intense, it's often referred to as saturation, which is technically incorrect. Saturation is more a term for digital or illuminated color. Chroma really refers to an absence of white or an absence of gray in the color. And I think with Munsell, it's easier to think about this as gray, since when we look at a Munsell color chart for a hue, you'll notice that at the left, the furthest left, and let's scroll down to seeing, we'll just skip past this for a second. So this is a Munsell color chart, and you'll see on the far left that it's your gray values going from 1 being your darkest all the way up to 9 being the lightest. And as you go out horizontally, the chroma increases. So we go from very grayed colors on the left to extremely bright chromatic colors on the right. And each hue will innately have its own color chart and its own distribution, depending on just how far you can take the chroma. And again, as I say, yellow, for example, is very weak, doesn't come out very far, whereas your reds, your blues, your purples, the chroma tends to come out quite far. So you'll see at the top, along the horizontal axis, is a number going from 1 up to 22, and of course the value numbers for going from 1 to 9. So that's what a Munsell color chart looks like. And as you become familiar with this, then you will understand how this color space works, particularly in our painting. And Munsell helps because it takes, basically what we visually see, 16 million colors, and breaks them down into 1600, something like that. So it becomes a little bit more manageable to deal with as a painter, since we are limited by the pigments in our paint tubes, which is by far less, let's say, broader range than what we actually see with our eyes. So the Munsell notation here, so it's hue, value, chroma. So the hue here is 7.5 red purple. Then you have the value is 8/6, which refers to the chroma. So this all looks very intimidating, but again, the more you work with it, the more you become familiar with it, and it will become manageable, and you'll even start to visualize where these things fit. And Michele Clamp, who is the developer of this app, mentions here that each hue is broken down to 2.5, 5, 7.5, and 10. These are the Munsell hue notations and the divisions. As I mentioned, 2.5, 5, 7.5, and 10 yellow. So 5Y is a mid-yellow, a 2.5Y is an orange yellow, and a 10Y is a greenish yellow. So and then in the app, we will get a chip display when we click on it. This will become apparent in a minute, and it gives us a Munsell chip and the actual color from the image. So let's just halt there. As I say, I think the first key thing here is just to understand Munsell and how it relates to color. So here I've gone to ChromaMagic.com, and I presume I'm on my iPad, and we can do this on a desktop as well. And you'll see, of course, Michele Clamp, the developer of the app, has put lots of information about the paid version of this, which is ChromaMagic version 3. However, at the top here, on the upper sort of navigation, you'll see a tab here marked Help. So I'm going to press that. And when I press that, there's a variety. At the top here, we can see Contact, Help, and Original. So if I click Original and remove that ad, I am now in the original ChromaMagic app, and it's free. So if you do not want to pay for the app, there is an option for the free version on micheleclamp.com. And so let's see how we could possibly use this. So on the upper right, we'll see a black button here saying to load the file. I can click on that, and I can go into my photo library. And let's just, for the sake of argument, pick these cherries. And you'll see on the right, I have an extreme blown up version of these. So this allows me to sort of move this cursor around. I can click on different parts of the image and get different viewpoints. And then I also have the original image in the panel on the left. So we'll see here the big red crosshairs. This is where I am on the image in terms of the color. And here you'll see in this rectangle there's two triangles. So on the upper triangle is the closest Munsell chip to this color that I've highlighted here. And the bottom part is the actual image color. So if you are interested in the information in terms of RGB or HSV, that's provided. I don't know a lot about that. That's more for digital artists. But here you'll see that Munsell chart that we talked about. So we've got a 5R, value 3, chroma 10. And it's highlighted by this white square. and that tells us that's the maximum chroma at this value. So value 3, which is this number here, in terms of the grayscale on the left, and the chroma value is a 10. So we have a very good sense of where this color is on the Munsell scale and perhaps how to mix it. So you'll also notice on the left here that the first button is the Munsell, and we also have a value button. So this breaks the image up into, we can now see into black and white and into 5 values. So we can increase the value steps if we want by pressing the plus or minus button here, and we get further breakdown in terms of the value, which may or may not be valuable, no pun intended. And again, we can start to understand the image in terms of its lightness and its darkness. The next portion is grayscale. So this again reverts the image back to its original format. It's nice and smooth. We don't have the pixelation that we had in the value. And grayscale, again, you may want to do an underpainting or understand what the image is purely, strictly in grayscale. The next button is chroma. And what this does is almost gives us a negative image and indicates the white. The lighter values indicate the highest chroma. So when we look at the image on the left, we can see that the highest chroma is near our highlights. And yet the highlights themselves show up as dark because they're actually very, low chroma. And again, we can click on areas in the image and we get a sense of what the chroma is in that area. And there's also a wheel, a color wheel. Again, if we click down again on the left, and it indicates the range of color and how it appears on the Munsell color wheel. So we get a sense of what our palette is and how to maybe perhaps what colors to lay out and how to arrange our colors and what to expect as we're painting. And this gives you alternatives. So in this example, we have a Munsell chip. The closest to the color that we've selected is 5R3/10. And that is the first chip we'll see here on the left. And it indicates a distance of 15 from the actual color from the image, which is the triangle on the lower right. And then as we go down in this column, we have a Munsell 2.5R value 3, chroma 10, and it's a little bit further away from our color chip, but perhaps might feel more correct. So in other words, this gives you some alternatives to think about in terms of mixing the color and or combining to create a closer color to the image sample. So when we look at this compared to, let's go back to the Munsell. When we look at this compared to ChromaMagic 3, you'll see that there's some limitations. However, for basic functionality and color selection, I think it works quite well, and you would have certainly a way to approach an image and mix colors. And here we've got a gray. So this will show you in your image when you're actually into the grays and out of color. But it gives you a huge range of tools to help you mix color and work on your paintings. There's a menu up here. So again, quick start guide. You've got all kinds of explanations as to how this app works and help and information. So it's it's a great resource for artists and painters. I find this blow up a little more awkward to work with, but you may like this, and it's free, so can't beat the price. So we'll leave it at that, and next I'm going to show you the ChromaMagic 3, the paid version of the app. So now I'm going to demonstrate the ChromaMagic here is on the right hand side of my iPad. I'm going to click on it and open it up. And I've already loaded that same cherry image into this version of the app. As I said, this is a paid version. It's approximately, I think, $25, $26 with tax. But you'll see that I think this has some improvements, or certainly more features, and they may or may not be of value to to you. So on the right hand side here, we can see a menu of icons here, and at the top is a question mark. So when we click on that, this is an overview and help. So this describes all the features of the app. So if you forget or you need help, this is all here, and we can close and go back to our image. If you've done something with your image here and you want to save it, the icon below that is you can save your image or any edits, etc., or anything that's come up here that you want to keep, and you can download the image. Here below that is your sample picker, which is this little icon here that we move around and sample the colors, and we can increase the sample size and or decrease it. Understand, I think it's something to be aware of is that if we make this like 1 pixel, these are pixels that this is referencing, the amount of processing you're asking the app to do with the image is enormous, so it will slow things down. So you may want to keep it fairly, at least fairly large. A lot of these things are set up in the settings as defaults, and again, you can change them. And you can see here that I've accidentally clicked on the grid. So again, in the settings, we can change the grid line color, and we can change the width of it in terms of pixels. But if you want to get rid of that, we just take the grid down to 0. If you want, and again, you have all kinds of options here to make the grid as large or as detailed as you wish. But again, if we don't want a grid, we just take that down to 0 and it disappears. So we have the color selection tool, as I said. So we click on the image and it gives us a relevant color for that area based on the sample size that we've selected. If, I don't know, for some reason your image has gotten small, we can expand it using the button below that to revert the image to the original size. And this option here removes the picture-in-picture. So again, the larger image is the one that's manipulated by the app, and the smaller image to the left is the original image and remains there. So the button with the rotating arrow gives us the arrangement of the image. So for example, if this was a landscape, you may want it in this configuration versus what I had it in. And this little bar here allows you to expand or contract the workspace to suit your preferences. And the next app or icon here is kind of a cloud. And what that does is blurs and sort of pixelates the image to some degree and mimics the effect of squinting down. So again, if we're trying to resolve our image in terms of big shapes, forms, light and dark areas, and again, in the beginning stages of a painting, certainly that's what's more valuable, then this mimics that whole squinting down and gives us that effect. So you can, again, click and remove it as desired. And the next, the circular icon below that restores the image to its original state, whatever that may, or what that may look like depending on what you were doing. And this final icon, this kind of star or sun looking thing, highlights. So if you have this particular, so where I've got the pointer, I've selected a color, this bright red now indicates anywhere on the image where that color matches that particular selection. So for example, if you've mixed up that color in palette mode, then you know that everywhere where you ideally want to apply that same color. So here on the left, again, we've got a Munsell chip closest to what the image sample. Let me remove this so we're a little less. So I've clicked on the image in this area here, and the color swatch on the left, which says image, is what matches that selection. So one of the features here is I can click on that, I get a larger swatch of that color, and I get an indication of a paint color that approximates that exact color. So I can actually buy M. Graham Anthraquinone Red, and I would get a very, very close approximation of that exact color. And or I can press mix, and what this does is gives me a range of approximation of mixes to create that color. Now, if you click this white mix button here, it can give you an option to substitute different, as she says here, select paints, custom paint selections coming soon, so she's developing that. So for example, here is Naphthol Red. I don't know about you, but I don't use Naphthol Red, but I could substitute Cadmium Red. It's a fairly close approximation. Then you'll see over here there's an X. I can close out of that, and I'm back to the Munsell chart. Now, what you'll also notice that in the settings on the chart, I have selected when a color is an approximate paint color, that a dot shows up. So for example, if I click on this, this tells me that this particular value 8, chroma 2, is an approximation of Gamblin's Portland Warm Gray. Over here, this is Gamblin's Radiant Red. So that's what these dots mean. So again, if that's of interest to you or valuable to you, then that might be a tool that you would want to utilize. On the very bottom of the screen, you'll see we've got color, palette, value, a plus sign, chroma, wheel, and settings. So as I mentioned, the settings, you can press this, and this helps you, again, set up this in a way that you prefer. But as Michelle will warn you in the notes here, there's certain things that you probably do not want to change because it just becomes extremely difficult for the processing of the image. But there are some things in terms of image quality that smooths the images out. It sort of does a working size of 1500 pixels, etc. I've found no need to change this, but it's there if you want to work with it. On the far left, on the color tab, you'll notice that it says 0 or original. So this is sort of the original working format, what you see. If we click on that once, we get 1, and you'll notice that the image has become somewhat pixelated, and what it's been converted to is it's still in color, but it's now only showing us 10 values of color. So it's a little more limited, and this might be useful for a block-in. You might want to develop your image in this mode, or if you go to 2, that simplifies it even further to 5 values of color, and this would be a great place to start on an image block-in. So I'm going to change this back to, because I think this is a better format for this image, as we can see more. But it gives us a better indication of the shadows, etc. And then if I click on it one more time, I return to the original image and a full value spectrum. So if we click on the palette icon, Again, on the lower bar here, you'll see that the basic colors of the image pop up and look like these little swatches. And where I've got my indicator here is where this highlighted palette swatch shows up. So if I click on that, then it also indicates on the image where that palette color exists. I click on it again, and that is, again, that highlighting element is removed. But I say, what this might be extremely valuable for is you could mix up all these colors. You've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 colors. And with those 10 colors, you could probably develop a great initial block in and get a great start on your painting. And again, when we click on the image, we go back to the mix and we can, again, get an idea of how to mix those colors. So that's palette mode. If we go into value mode, again, on the bottom bar here, this shows us the image in a Munsell gray value, about 10 values. And again, if you wanted to do a gray underpainting or simply just get an understanding of how light or dark your image is, then this is a great resource. Certainly a great, to me, this is a great indication of how dark red is. Again, psychologically, we find red is often an intense color, and we often make the error of making it brighter than what it actually is in terms of its value. And certainly here, where the, where this indicator is a value 4, and we often don't realize just how dark it is. And again, we also have the option with this slider, we can, I guess if we just click on it, we can move it. When it's in red mode, then it's a more standard 5 or 10 value. But we can, create almost like a no-tan image. So, which may be valuable for abstract painters. So this might be a way, playing around within this value space, maybe a way for abstract painters to start an abstract. So this might be an entry point and a way to develop your work that way. So that's the value button on the bottom. In the center is the plus button, and what this is, if we press this, you'll see here it opens up my photo library, or I can take a photo, or I can choose a file. So, if I click my photo library again, I can click any image here, and it gets loaded into the app. Let's return to the original. So we've got color and chroma. So to the right of the plus button is the chroma mode. And again, we kind of get this negative image. So the white background, because it's completely lacking in chroma, appears as black. And again, the highlight appears as a very dark gray. But the bright red next to the highlight, so when we look at that, so we get our maximum chroma in this area here. Right adjacent to the highlight here is just, maximum chroma, which is a 5R4, and you'll see we're at 14, which is getting, getting into an extremely chromatic color. So this also helps you read your image and develop your colors. There's also, next to the chroma button is the wheel, and this shows us our colors in our image in a wheel format. So this might be, for you, more visually, a better way to organize the image for you visually is to see all these colors laid out. So we have the yellows and greens in the stem, and the reds within the cherry, and of course the violets in the shadow, this area down here. And that will, so where I click, you will see that the black outline shows us on the wheel where I am color-wise. So again, you know, this may or may not be a way for you to work. So, and finally, yeah, is the settings. So if I return back to the color, the 0 here on the far left, I'm back into that original basic mode. And let me click this to get rid of that sample size. Yeah. Back to here. And I'm back into the Munsell scale. So hopefully this gives you an idea of the unpaid version of the app versus the paid version of the app, and gives you an idea of how this could be potentially used in your work with your paintings, and an idea of just how versatile this can be. And perhaps for many of you, this will organize color in a way that you can finally sort of get a handle on it and understand it. So I have one other final thing to show you, and I think that will be give us a fairly good basis in understanding this app. So the final thing I want to talk about with the ChromaMagic app is adapting the brightness on your laptop or tablet or screen. So I'm just going to do this on my phone because I think it's the easiest thing to, because I have to film this on my iPad. But you want to go into your display, and again, there'll be an equivalent on your device. And the issue, of course, is the brightness. So if we're trying to match a color on a digital device with paint, then there's this sort of disconnect between the white screen, the brightness of the screen, and let's say paper or gesso or whatever our paint surface is. So one way to look at this is if we have a piece of white paper, then we're going to need to adapt the brightness on our screen. Not cooperating here. And again, it's a bit tricky to film this. It doesn't really come across on the film. But when I squint down in real life here, that looks pretty good. Let's try it with our value chart. This might work a bit better. And again, it's a bit of an angle thing, and of course the white of the value chart or the paper is not, I'm getting quite a bluish cast on my phone screen. So it's somewhere, somewhere in here, and you will have to play with it. But very often you've got to take the brightness down. And see, now that feels too bright, but actually on the camera I think it looks better. But usually it's a matter of taking it down so that you're not getting this bright glare sort of interfering. And actually that might be a good example there where, and so much of this is also going to depend on your ambient light. So again, that's a final feature with ChromaMagic, is adjusting your display as best as you can to allow for the color to register as true as possible. But again, there's some translation involved between digital and the reality of our paint pigments, or analog, however you want to phrase it. Okay, so just be aware of that when you're using the ChromaMagic app, whether it's on your phone, your tablet, or your laptop.